So, Algo Nuevo is a song that I wrote maybe like, I don't know, probably a couple years ago. I've been working on music for a couple years, and I sat on hella music. Like, I had it written, finished, wrote all the instrumental parts, recorded everything, and really just didn't think there would be an audience, didn't think that like people would feel it, and more so than that, it's a lot of work to put out music. It's a lot of resources. So I sat on a lot of music for a minute. I sat on my first single, Nada Me Pertenece, for over a year, and then Algo Nuevo probably a year. Lelo Lai, which was the last song that I released, I sat on that shit for like probably a year and a half or something like that. So, but what I do appreciate about these songs is that it's still relevant to my life today. Like, it's still super present. Algo Nuevo specifically is about just kind of a rejection of like heteropatriarchy. Like, I know this about myself, but I'm kind of a serial monogamous, and I've been in relationships my whole ass life. So Algo Nuevo was definitely like a breakup song for me. I was like, you know, I'm kind of cool off of this, and I'm gay, and that's never really something I had like talked about or explored. But being raised here in the city with like a hella gay ass family and like a lot of like queer culture in my life made this like drop really fun, a really fun celebration. Nobody had really heard it. I put it out and was like, okay, I'm gonna have a fat ass party. We're gonna do a screening of the music video. We're gonna have a screening of my other homegirls video. We're gonna have a live track on it, live band. My family's gonna play a set, and everyone came out. My whole ass family was there, extended, and like nobody even really blinked an eye that I was like, hey, I'm looking for a girlfriend now, or like a non-gender conforming person to be with. Like, everyone was like, wow, great, Mija, that's great, it's so nice, so beautiful, we're proud of you. I was like, okay, for sure. So it was like a little bit anticlimactic, but also so fun and chill. So yeah, that was the conception and birth of Algo Nuevo. I really like when people ask me about like the trajectory of my artistry, because I have always played so many different types of music that it's really not linear like that. Like, I'm existing in this ocean of influences and musics. So it's not like, oh, I started here at Mexican music, and then I went here to Latin jazz, then I went here. Like, it's just all in my brain all the time. And like, the part of the way that I write is I like to be inspired by different people that I work with, different collaborators, or different themes that are coming up in my life. But yeah, in terms of Algo Nuevo, it's not like, oh yeah, that's the style I was doing last year. It's more so like, nah, that's the style that I was fucking with, and I'm probably gonna make something else like that soon. Like, Lelo Lai is also along that vein. I was working with Adiemi Demetrius, who's actually the trombone player featured in this song as well. And we grew up together. Like, we went to Buena Vista together, right down the block, and our dads played music together, like, throughout our childhoods. And we got in the studio, and he's mostly like a hip-hop producer. He works with a lot of rappers out here. And I was like, just give me something saucy, give me something hyphy. And he was like, okay, I got it. 10, 15 minutes, whipped that up. And I was like, okay, alright. And I sat down, another 10 minutes, and I had the song. Like, we're fast. We work really fast together, so that's exciting. And then just my ear loves to hear, like, a large brass section, because I'm a trumpet player, and I love banda, I love mariachi, I love, like, New Orleans style, like, big bands, brass bands. Like, that shit gets me. So I was like, throw some trumpet on there? Okay, yeah, throw the other part. Okay, throw the other part. Okay, get your trombone. Oh, you don't play no more? I don't care. Get your trombone. And so I had him record on it. And yeah, so that's just the way that I was thinking about themes, what I want to talk about, the flavors that I want, super Frisco based, hyphy, and then also just making it more sonically interesting with live instrumentation, especially that brass, the nice brights, to kind of it widens the song out a little bit sonically. So yeah. A lot of people ask me about, because my dad is in my band, and he's like one of my main musical influences, along with my mom, obviously. But I was raised in a family band, basically. Like, I'm gonna say a musical family, but I feel like even more so than a musical family, it was like, no, it's the band, and we're happy to be a family, but you're in the band. So growing up, they never really asked me like, oh, are you gonna play music? Are you gonna play with us? Do you want to join us? They're like, okay, well, what are you playing tonight? Like, Or sometimes they'd be like, well, our percussionist didn't come, so you have to play percussion. Or like, oh, your sister can't do this gig, so you have to play guitar. So that's how I kind of like hit the ground running. Like, you know, and they have like the this is a really weird analogy, but they have like videos of like baby giraffes being born, and they fall from like a hella high ass height out their mom's coochie, and they're like, I'm a baby, but now I have to walk and like run in the savannah. That's kind of how I felt with music. Like I was like born playing gigs. So that was my relationship performing professionally since I was like 7 years old with my family band. And definitely when I started doing like more música urbana or like talking about like sex or sexuality or just like using swear words, you know, like I'm a grown ass woman, but I still felt like a little bit apprehensive to share that with my family, which might be a reason that I sat on my music for a minute. But I was like, oh yeah, I don't think they're gonna fuck with it. Like I don't know if they like it or if they're gonna think it's bad, or like that's the biggest thing. Like I don't give a fuck what anyone else has to say, but like my parents, I'm like, so you feeling it? Or like I don't even ask them, like I don't even know. But so it felt really good when I showed them, and they felt accepting, they felt excited by it. They were like, wow, mija, we didn't see that coming, but we like it. And people trip off though that my dad is in my band, because I'm hella hyphy. Like I will admit it. I'm on stage twerking. I be yelling at people. I'm like, shake your fucking ass. Like I really be like going kind of live on stage, and everyone's like, your dad's right there, and I'm like, bruh, I grew up like when you think about it, most of the music, like most of Latin dance music, of course, is embedded with like hugely important socio-political messages and messages of resistance and placekeeping and culture keeping, but also a lot of it is about sex. So like when we're singing con su pollera colorada, like when you're saying all of this stuff, it's all about like sex appeal. It's all about who wants to go with who, and how is this gonna happen, and who's playing the best, who's gonna get the girl, or who, like all of this stuff. All of these themes are not new. It's not like something that's gonna shock my father to hear, you know. So I kind of like me rechazo this idea that like it's inappropriate to like perform this with your family or with like people that you have a different type of relationship with. And he's just a writer, honestly. Like I took him on tour. I opened for Cuco this last fall, and we did a nationwide tour, and I took him with me not because people are like, oh, that's good, he can take care of you. I'm like, that's like, no. I take care of him. If anything, I'm the one that's like, hey dad, do you need to go home? Like, no. But because he's just such a versatile musician, so he plays he plays everything. We're all music educators, and he teaches everywhere. But on tour he played button accordion, he played guitar, he played trumpet, he was a singer for me. So it's just like in terms of musicality, like he was my man. And yeah, that's just kind of the way that I interact with my family and am inspired by my family, and am able to continue to involve them in my current projects. I think that so often, so many of us, especially women or non-gender conforming people, especially people of color, are really not given the space to be happy with their full selves, you know? Like, I'm hella hyphy, hella loud, like, you know, a bigger, wider person, and I have heard, like, oh, you're too bossy, or like, oh, like shit like that, and I'm like, the fuck? Like, that's a sure way to get me all fired up. And so, like, I grapple with as well, like, obviously, in the instance of me, like, sitting on my music for a little bit, or, like, you know, thinking about how am I going to introduce this to my family. Obviously, I grapple with fear and insecurities, as we all do. And I just, like, want to drive home the importance of realizing like your full self, like your creative self, and also that you're always changing. Like, I feel very consistent in my personhood. I've been the same ass bitch since I was a little ass girl, but that doesn't mean that I always was writing as La Doña, or I always heard this type of music in my head. Like, I'm always going to be changing. Everyone is always going to be developing and hopefully becoming pushing out the bounds that have been set for them, or that they have set for themselves. So definitely creatively, like, go for it. If you think something's kind of funky, you think it's kind of weird, like, fuck it. Like, there might be somebody out there who really digs it. And if not, and I always, like, because I'm a music teacher, so I always tell my students, even if nobody likes your shit, like, even if everyone's like, whack, nah, like, you did that for yourself. If you feel good doing it, if you, like, if it did something for you, healing, exciting, like if it did anything for you, then that's why you have that practice. Like, I think it should be super process based, not just like people drop music and they're like, why isn't it getting these hits? Why isn't it getting this attention? Why isn't it going anywhere? Bruh, you did it. You wrote it. You imagined it. You realized it. So what do you mean it's not going anywhere? It's done. Like, for me, and that's something that I deal with too, because for me, once I do it, I'm like, cool. Like, this morning, preparing for this shoot was the first time that I've listened to Algo Nuevo, and, you know, probably, unless I'm at the club and they play it, or unless I'm performing it, like, probably since I dropped it, you know, like, I don't listen to my music, because it is so much, like, more, like, healing-based and, like, process-based. So, yeah, trust the process, trust yourself, and always be pushing yourself, you know, like, trust your directions, because there's not one path. You know, because you go one path or want to do one certain thing, that's not limiting. And like, I feel like pop culture really limits artists and is like, no, you gotta figure out your thing and do your thing. But like, that's a fucking farce. Like, you can do whatever the fuck you want. An example of this that, like, she wasn't able to be here, but one of my main collaborators, Naomi Garcia, we grew up together playing music. She plays saxophone. She also sings background vocals for me. And this last year, she decided she wanted to do video production. Now she's like such a fucking bomb-ass director and editor and like all like working, and like always busy. And she does all of my music videos. And so it's like, you're not confined by what you might have been good at or what you're still good at. You can always do different shit. So, yeah, I don't know, keep pushing.